feel like I owe Auburn an apology. Uh, the Auburn spring game was bad, and I came on here, talked about it. I may have overreacted. I watched the Florida spring game yesterday. That Florida spring game has set football back 100 years. That might be the worst football game I've ever seen of any kind. Worse than Georgia beating TCU in the national title game. Worse than, some top 10 team playing, whipping an FCS team. It was just bad football. Think of the Iowa offense. You know how bad the Iowa offense is. People crack jokes about the Iowa offense all the time. It's almost become a meme at this point, the Iowa offense. Imagine if the Iowa offense was just an entire football team that was that bad. That might be Florida. I don't even really know where to start here. They can't snap the ball. They can't snap the ball. The most basic, fundamental aspect of college football, the thing that starts every offensive play. They can't snap the ball. I lost count on how many fumbled or screwed up snaps they had. And I know it was a backup center. That's great. It was your second string center, a freshman. A freshman that Billy Napier saw and said, we need that guy. That guy's a hell of a center. Bring him in. It's unbelievable. I'm not surprised that the quarterbacks were bad. I'm surprised they were that bad in a spring game. A spring game can be scripted. A spring game, things can be manipulated within a spring game by the coaching staff and the way the rules are set up to make things look a certain way. Those quarterbacks, they had 14 yards passing. Total! For the whole game. Not in the first quarter, not on the first drive. Not at halftime, not one of the cute. Total. 14 yards passing. What was the final score? 10-7? They had to add time. The game ended. They had to add additional time to the game at the end to give the field goal kicker an opportunity to make a kick because he had missed so many during the regular game. It was like a cuddle parade for the kicker. Like, no, I know the game's over and the kicker has missed every field goal he's attempted. Why don't we add some extra time to the clock so that we can give our field goal kicker one more opportunity? It was just the saddest thing. It was so sad. Florida is in a world of hurt. A world of hurt. That quote from Sunbelt Billy, who doesn't know what he's doing, by the way, Sunbelt Billy doesn't, and he's in over his head. But that quote from Sunbelt Billy from a couple of months ago after they brought Graham Mertz in from the transfer portal where Billy Napier answered a question and basically, word for word basically was like, we took a look at every quarterback that was in the portal and we felt like Graham Mertz was the best of the bunch. Holy shit. Better than Sam Hartman, better than Devin Leary, better than Spencer Sanders. Graham Mertz might have been the worst quarterback in the portal. Dummy. I don't even know. I don't know if it's going to take a while for Florida to recover from how bad they are as a team right now. You might as well forget this season if you're a Florida fan. It's going to be absolutely horrendous. The positive spin from the game is that the defense is amazing. And look, similar to what I said about Auburn, okay? It's possible that Florida's going to have a pretty good defense. In fact, I do think that Florida's defense is going to be better than it was last year. I actually like the guy they brought in as defensive coordinator, so I think there will be an improvement there. But there's a talent deficiency on that defense. Don't get it twisted. Florida's not some top defensive team. They're not. Now, their defense is miles beyond their offense, but their offense is horrendous. They have 10 sacks. 10! They gave up 10 sacks in this game. You can't even touch the quarterback. 10 sacks. Well, I knew the offensive line was going to be bad. Now, the offensive line was Florida's strength last year. They had a great running game. Anthony Richardson was a big part of that, though. You had to respect his ability to run the ball. That made it easier for the running backs to run, but I still liked the Florida running backs, especially Etienne, and he looked good. Again, no surprise there. He might be the best player on that team, their running back, Etienne. He looked good, but they can't run up the middle. I mean, I don't even know. Sometimes you see this in a regular game and it frustrates me. You're like, why do they keep running the ball up the middle? It's not working. It didn't work for Florida yesterday. Now, some stuff out in space. Some stuff on the outside, that worked okay with the ground game and the running backs. But I'm dead serious. Outside of Florida's running backs, offensively, it's the biggest nothing burger I think that I've ever seen from the University of Florida. You would probably have to go all the way back to maybe Will Muschamp's first year at Florida, which was what, like 2011 or something? I mean, it was over 10 years ago, to find a Florida offense that's this bad. It's horrendous. 10 sacks given up, 14 yards total passing. They can't snap the ball. 10-7 final score in a spring game where they had to add time. The game was over. Sunbelt Billy runs out there and adds time to the clock so that the field goal kicker can finally make a field goal after missing every other one he had attempted. Absolutely pitiful. You look at Florida's schedule. I mean, you just start counting up the obvious losses. They're losing on the road at Utah in week 1. They are not winning that game. I know they beat Utah last year at home, and honestly, that's Billy Napier's best win by a country mile. Is that win last year against Utah. They're not winning this year. Not on the road at Utah with this offense. They might have the worst offense in the SEC. I'm dead serious. But so that's a loss to kick things off. You know they're losing to Georgia in Jacksonville for the cocktail party. I mean, that game's already over. LSU's going to beat them like a drum. That's 3 losses. They host Tennessee early in the season. Huge loss. They're losing. Look, Tennessee, I'm not kidding you. I'm not trolling. Because look, I've made more fun of Tennessee on this channel than any other team, probably. Tennessee's going to beat Florida by 40 points. It is going to be one of the worst beatings of the season that we see in any game involving any two teams. Florida is going to absolutely lay the hammer down on Florida. It's going to be ugly and humiliating at the Swamp in Gainesville. That's going to be like a 55-17 type of game. Tennessee is going to beat the will to live out of them early in the year. Utah lost, Tennessee lost, LSU, that's a guaranteed loss. Georgia, guaranteed loss. Florida State at the end of the year, guaranteed. Last 5 games, Florida's got absolutely no prayer of even competing in. And we're not even into May, and it's just that obvious. Florida is a train wreck, a garbage fire, a dumpster juice fire. They are horrendous. I don't know if I've ever seen a Florida team that looked as bad as they looked last night. That was embarrassing and just humiliating. So that's 5 guaranteed losses. We haven't even talked about South Carolina, who was the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the country at the end of last year. Vandy, who humiliated Florida last year. Missouri, which I think will be a little bit better. Kentucky, which has owned Florida over the last 5 or 6 years. Do they play Arkansas? Do they play Arkansas from the West? KJ Jefferson? Oh, God. Is it possible Florida goes 4-8? I don't know. I think they'll probably get to 6 wins. They look like a 6-6 team to me if things go well. If things go well, they might get to 6-6, which is good because they'll make a bowl game. But it's bad because that means they'll lose their bowl game, whoever they play. That's going to put them at 6-7, and that will be not 1, not 2, but 3 losing seasons in a row for the Florida Gators. They have fallen off so far from where they once were as a program. They're not even recognizable at this point. They're a laughing stock of the NIL world thanks to the Rashada NIL deal situation with the quarterback they tried to recruit and sign a couple of months ago, where the NIL deal fell through at the last minute and all that. They're just a joke at this point. I don't know of a single college football fan outside of Gainesville, Florida, that takes them seriously at all. They're an embarrassment. They're going to do nothing but humiliate themselves this season, and they're not going to fire Billy Napier. They're going to keep Billy Napier. Billy Napier will be the head coach at Florida next year. He will. Now, next year will be his last year, just like Uncle Lou's been telling you since the beginning. 2024 will be Billy Napier's last year, but he's an absolute train wreck. It's an absolute joke. This is your Butch Jones, Florida man. Billy Napier is your Butch Jones. The only difference is Butch Jones actually won 9 games once or twice. You're not sniffing that. You're not sniffing that. You're an absolute failure right now as a program and as a team for this year. You might as well hang it up. Where does Florida slot in right now in the SEC pecking order? Forget the East and the West. Where does Florida slot in right now in the SEC? They're clearly behind Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, LSU. I think they're behind South Carolina. They're equal or so with like the Kentuckys and the Mizzous, maybe ahead of Vandy. Florida's like somewhere in the like 10 to 12 range, probably. Maybe even the 11 to 13 range. There's 14 teams in the SEC. Florida right now falls somewhere between like, 10 and 12. Next year, once Texas and Oklahoma come in, they're automatically ahead of Florida in the pecking order. So that'll put Florida in the 12, 13, 14 range out of 16 teams in the SEC. What an absolute disaster the Florida Gators football program has become. And I'm here for every second of it. Have a great day.